I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the Town of Lafayette and City of Elkhorn Joint Extraterritorial Zoning Committee meeting. The time is 6:01. Can I have a roll call, please?
Boardman,
Here.
Stocko,
Here.
Watke,
Here.
Smaji,
Here.
Steffen,
Here.
Solinsky.
Wonderful. And then I will ask for a motion and action to name a chairperson tonight.
I'd like to nominate Jim Boardman.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Already voted in, huh?
I make a motion to adjourn to a public hearing.
There a second to that motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion to go to a conditional use permit for solar energy project, One Energy Development, LLC, Peter Murphy, N6164 Cobb Road, Elkhorn, Wisconsin, 53121. Tax key number KLF 1900006, Town of Lafayette. Does Mr. Murphy want to address the board? Yeah, anyone with a microphone, please.
I will say, if I could just make one comment, I believe the applicant has a more lengthy presentation that might be best after the public hearing is closed, because they are limited to 3 minutes. So maybe the applicant could go when the public hearing is closed, and we could have any public comment from citizen members, if that's okay with the commission.
Chair,
Yeah,
your thoughts on that?
yeah. It's fine. That,
Okay.
I'm
so-
okay with that, yes.
So this way we'd be asking for comments from anyone for or against the project from the public.
Anybody wishing to be heard that is either for or against the project, come up to the podium, please, and state your name and your address. And you're limited to 3 minutes.
Been associated with the city all these years, I never got a cup, I'm just saying. I had to buy one. Oh. From the chamber. It's not fair.
Good evening. My name is Penny Marsh. I'm here with my husband Winston Marsh. We live at W 4684 Potter Road, which is directly across from the field that the project's going to be put into. Okay, we're right there in Potter, next to the Lafayette Township building. I sent in a letter writing about the concerns that I had. I believe all of you gotten a copy of that letter.
Yes, ma'am.
As well as a citizen that I know that lives in a solar community where they put the solar panels up around her property. There was a letter from her in her testimonial. The things that I'm asking for this group to consider and evaluate are the effects to the environment. Is there going to be any harm done to the environment, whether it be to wastewater contamination? And again, there's a little creek that runs through there that goes to Sugar Creek that ends up in the Fox River, and then that ends up in Lake Michigan. It also could end up in our groundwater in that area around us. I don't know if you have children or grandchildren, but right now there is a federal recall happening in applesauce for lead contamination. Lead contamination in the applesauce has sickened over 60 children. Lead is in these panels, lead and cadmium. Heavy metal contamination is very difficult to get rid of. We have arsenic in our soil from past sins. We have a lot of contamination already in our food supply. So I would like you to take and do some consideration to, again, the health and wellness of the individuals in the community, the waterway, the endangered species that we have in Walworth County, specifically a little cute little striped snake I see in my yard all the time. I also would like you to take a look at information about the health effects living near a solar facility. They're documented, they're studying them right now, that there's negative health effects for living near a solar facility. And then my final question to this team is, how would this property be taxed? Is it now going to go and be taxed as commercial, like a warehouse, or is it still going to stay ag? Because ag tax is very low and will not benefit the community. Commercial tax goes into the community. And then I have one final comment, and that is, my understanding is, that the city of Elkhorn wanted at some point to be able to annex in this property and provide a larger tax base and more residential area for the city of Elkhorn. Putting a solar farm there, I don't think makes that possible. I don't think anybody would buy there. So, property values are going to be negatively affected. I've included a couple of studies on the negative effects of property values. I don't know how I'm going to be made whole for the result of a solar farm going in. I don't know how anybody else is
We
going
are
to be
just
made
a little
whole.
past 3 minutes.
All right, I've done my best to get everything out for you to make a informed decision. This is very important to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
That's not what this part is for.
Okay.
Anybody else wishing to be heard? Second time, anybody else wishing to be heard? And a third time, anybody wishing to be heard? If not, I'll have Mr. Smith come up and explain what he wants to do, or not, Mr. Murphy, pardon me. I'm an hour behind.
That's the curse of having a generic name, right? Smith Murphy.
It's gonna come up on the screens wherever you.
Let's do it.
Sure.
I don't know. Thanks, man.
Whenever you're ready, I'll have you take over.
Yeah, I think I'm ready. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Hello, my name is Peter Murphy. I'm here joined by my colleague Seamus Fitzgerald. We work for One Energy Renewables. We're based in Madison with a, sorry, hang on a second. There we go. I should probably just use this. We're part of about a 20-person team in Madison. There's, I think, 75 folks who work for the company around the nation. We're an independent developer of renewable energy projects, specifically community-scale solar projects. Sorry, this looks different than this, so I'm a little bit off here, sorry. This is just a map of the projects that we've developed around the Midwest. As you can see, there's, the vast majority of them are in Wisconsin. This year, we are wrapping up, or I should say this month, we are really wrapping up 4 projects that are just slightly larger than this one that we're proposing. They are 7.5 megawatts. The one we're proposing is 6 megawatts in We Energy's territory.
I'm gonna steal back the presentation if you don't mind, because we can't see it on our screens for whatever reason, so I'm having some technical difficulties.
Oh,
But I
sure.
have the presentation in front of me.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll just kind of
let you know
scroll
that
down
I'm
as
gonna-
you're talking, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah, that sounds
Sorry
good.
about that.
Oh, it's okay.
No, you'll be able to see it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, as I was saying, we have some experience developing projects like this around the Midwest. A little bit about my background. I spent almost 8 years doing consumer education and consumer protection for residential solar. So this is I've been in this industry for almost a decade, maybe over a decade now. Um, all of Ms. Marsh's concerns are close to me as well. Like I care about the things that she's raising, and hope to address those issues. But first, uh, a few notes on this project. One of the questions we get frequently is why are solar projects getting built in Wisconsin in the first place? And this chart kind of seeks to begin to answer that question. This is the levelized cost of electricity from utility scale solar unsubsidized, starting back in 2009, and then as you go to the right along this chart, you can see 2021. So back in 2009, the price of electricity from utility scale solar projects was 36 cents a kilowatt hour. Here in We Energy's territory, we pay about 13.5 cents per kilowatt hour for retail electricity. And so it wasn't cost competitive. Fast forward a dozen years, we're at around 3.6 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's much more on par with the avoided cost or wholesale rate of electricity that utilities pay. So much more cost competitive, right? Next slide, please. Oops. What is going on here? There we go. So this slide kind of hammers the point home. Basically, circled in gold there is utility scale solar. The bars represent the range of price per megawatt hour. And then down at the bottom is conventional sources of electricity. And that green line is that 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour line. So as you can see, solar is among the cheapest kilowatt hour on the grid today. It's cheaper today to point a piece of glass at the sun than it is to burn stuff for the first time in human history, which is really exciting. But all of this is to say that while solar energy investments are seemingly a high upfront investment, the vast majority, like in the 90% of the cost of the project is upfront, and they produce power predictably and affordably for the lifetime of the project, which is 30, 40, possibly 50 years. So they're not subject to the fluctuations due to geopolitics or the decisions of a world leader on the other side of the planet or supply chain breakdowns, et cetera. Yeah, so that's some background as to why solar projects are now getting built in Wisconsin. Wisconsin farms are already very much a part of the energy mix in Wisconsin. About 37% of our corn crop goes to ethanol production. So when a landowner like Dwayne and Ann Deacons decide to change their cash crop from corn to sunlight, it's actually a much more efficient land use. It's net energy production per acre is 100 plus times greater for solar than it is for corn. And just a little over 1% of Wisconsin's total farmland would be required to generate 100% of Wisconsin's electricity if they were all projects as efficient as the NISA project that we're proposing. Next slide, please. So how do we select a site for solar? There's really three important tenets. The first is the existing electrical infrastructure. So along Cobb Road, to the east of the project, there is a three-phase line. This size project is 6 megawatts. It's much smaller than the really big projects that tend to get a bad rap because they build all around lots and lots of residential areas, and they tend to grade as much as basically like all the land that they use. This is much smaller. We're seeking a three-phase line and a nearby substation that the utility studies and basically tells us here's how much it'll cost to upgrade this substation, or maybe it'll have minimal upgrades or what have you. And that's often where the project breaks down. The cost of interconnecting to the existing infrastructure. This project is on land that has a transmission line, but it's going to tie into the distribution lines, which serve all of the neighboring residences and businesses. so it's sited deliberately next to a transmission line. We want to keep infrastructure by infrastructure, but it's connecting to the three-phase line along Cobb Road. Second is site suitability, so the actual land itself. Generally, we're looking for a nice, usually rectangular, flat piece of land outside of or free of wetlands, outside of floodplains. We want to have a depth of bedrock deeper than 15 feet or so, and for reasons I'll discuss in a moment. But basically, yeah, looking for this suitable electrical infrastructure, suitable land, and then the third piece, which is the most important, is having an interested landowner. So Dwayne and Ann, who are unable to be here tonight for medical reasons, they're committed to having this project on their land for 30, possibly 40 or 50 years. And that's, as you can imagine, pretty difficult to secure as well. So all three of these things have come together on this particular parcel. Yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. So let's talk about the components of the project. Left my solar panel over there. One second. So this is what a solar panel looks like on a typical residential solar installation. Tempered glass on the top, so a layer of glass, and then a layer of silicon, these silicon wafers. Silicon is the second most abundant element on the planet after oxygen. They're tied together with silver ribbon. There's an aluminum frame. And then on these, there's a back sheet that is polymer. And then there's the junction box, and these are just normal, essentially like Romex. On our projects, we use bifacial panels. Bifacial panels look the same on this side as they do on this side. And that is so we can take advantage of what's called the albedo effect. So when it's snowy here, and there's sunlight reflecting off the snow, there's actually improved power production. And anytime you've done work outside in the snow and gotten some sunburn on your chin, you know that effect can be very, very real. So the bifacial modules are mounted on top of what's called single-axis trackers. So these trackers, as you can see, there's a steel I-beam embedded directly into the ground that sticks up about 5 feet, and then on top of that 5 foot tall reveal is it's called a torque tube, but this is our tracking system. And so that runs north and south, which is you can see how it's depicted on the site plan. But throughout the day, these start facing east at an angle of about 50 degrees. And then throughout the day, at approximately 15-minute increments, they adjust just ever so slightly, and they follow the sun through the sky, ending at 50 degrees facing west when the sun goes down. The overall height when they're fully extended, or when they're at their tallest, is about 8 or 8.5 feet. When they're flat, they're at about 6 feet. You can see in that image, the man who's closest to us is probably around 6 feet tall. The panels there are probably at about a height of 6.5 feet. That fence to their left is 8 feet tall. So next slide, we can talk a little bit more about the fence. So we use a agricultural style perimeter fence. It's like a deer exclusion fence, a woven wire. It's similar to what you would see around an orchard or a cranberry bog. Wood posts spaced 20 feet apart. Sometimes we use steel. Lately, I haven't seen any steel posts, so this will likely be wood posts. The gauge of that wire at its narrowest is 3 inches by 6 inches at the bottom, and then 7 inches by 6 inches at the top. So it gets wider as you go up. You'll notice it's not barbed wire, it's not chain link. It's designed to blend with the agricultural character of the community. And again, stands about 8 feet tall. Next slide, please. So a couple of other components of the project are the inverters and the transformer. So the inverters, what they do is convert direct current which flows from the solar panels, to alternating current, which is what we use on the grid and what the three-phase lines use. There will be 24 of those in the project. They're mounted on those steel I-beams as well, and the man in that picture is about 6'3". And then transformers, these are similar to what you would see outside of a school or a department store, just the big green transformers. They step up the power from the site to match the power lines along Cobb Road, which are 24.9 kV. They're mounted on these 10-foot by 10-foot cement pads, and that's the only pavement on the whole project. Next slide, please. So the fact that we don't pave anything allows us to plant permanent vegetation throughout the site. So what we do is we plant native pollinator habitat throughout the whole site. And this is really cool. We had a super bloom at one of our Minnesota projects this year, and it looked like this. So it's not always going to look like a field full of black-eyed Susans, but when we have good luck with super blooms, like this is something that we were all really, really excited to see. The reason we plant, I guess we can go to the next slide. I have sheep here depicted because we have 7 or 8 projects that have sheep grazing. If there is someone here who knows a grazer nearby, that's kind of the trickiest part about getting sheep grazing on a solar project. But it works really well, and it's really beneficial to the land. Right now, what we plan to do is have native pollinator habitat. And the reason we do that is because they have deep roots, which improve water infiltration. They rest the land. They're more biodiverse. You have more beneficial bacteria in that soil. It's basically taking land that's been row cropped for a generation or two, or maybe more, and improving it. And we would expect to see, to Ms. Marsh's point, we would expect to see water quality improve near the site, because we build these projects designed to be low impact. We site them to be low impact. We maintain them to be low impact. Everything about the site is designed to be beneficial, not deleterious to a community. This is delivering power locally from the sun instead of burning stuff, and covered in native prairie. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan. This is the same as this one over here. Obviously, it's in the town of Lafayette and in the city of Elkhorn's extraterritorial zone. It's 6 megawatts. Fenced area is approximately 30 acres, a little less. It's expected to produce 11.9 million kilowatt hours per year, which is enough electricity for about a little over 1,400. Maybe it's right at 1,400 average Wisconsin households. And again, connecting to existing 3-phase distribution lines right along Cobb Road. Next slide, please. Let's see where we're at here. Okay, I'm almost done. I have two slides left. Sorry. I told Allison I'd be brief, but I'm not a fast talker. So one of the benefits of having a project like this in your community is resilience. Back in, I guess it was just over a year ago, Hurricane Ian basically clobbered Florida. 2 million people lost power. And there happens to be a housing development developed by a former Packer, Sid Kitson, where they have solar on homes, and they also have a community scale solar project similar to this one, and they never lost power. So obviously there's not going to be a hurricane here. But the point is, the more distributed projects we have like this, the more distributed sources of electricity rather than centralized at massive power plants far away that sending electricity along long stretches of transmission line, the more resilient our power system can be. So it's a benefit to the community. And then last slide is just, we like to give tours of our projects. I gave a tour to plan commissioners from the town of our Spring Prairie project on Highway 11. Solar installer is one of the fastest growing jobs in the United States. And I'm on the board of directors of the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. It's sort of like the leading Midwestern organization for workforce development in renewable energy. So this is all stuff we care about. We really believe this to be a job creator and good for the local economy. The last slide is just kind of like my contact information, Seamus's contact information, and happy to answer any questions.
I've got some.
Go ahead.
So do you do anything to the ground before you put your stuff up? Do you prep it? Do you gravel
Yeah.
it? Do you do what to it?
Yeah, so there's a civil plan. We have because we're there's I can't remember what the exact threshold is, but basically because there's disturbance to the land, we have to have a DNR, stormwater and erosion control permit.
It's 1 acre, I think.
Perfect, thank you. I have the permit number, the name of the permit, I should say, in my application. Sorry for not having that. It's
NOI.
So and I guess I'm asking is do you put a base layer or something on top of the soil?
nope. No, we maintain the topsoil. Any grading that needs to be done, topsoil is removed, set to the side. Subsoil is graded, and then topsoil is replaced. We want to have a higher quality soil when the project is decommissioned than when we put it in.
Okay, so how long's your lease for this, or for on an average plot of area that you're going to
Sure.
put a solar thing in? You sign a lease with the owner. What's the average length on it?
The length of this lease is 30 years with 2 10-year options to extend. So it could be up to 40 years or 50 years. The rationale behind that is basically the solar modules, the components are warranted for 30 years. But it's kind of like the powertrain warranty on your car, like you expect it to last longer. So that's why there's 2 10-year options to extend. But 30 years is the minimum.
So come to the end of the 30 years, they don't want to renew. You go in, tear everything out, make it back to the way it used to be?
Yeah, better.
Better.
Yeah, we have a decommissioning plan. It's part of our lease. It's usually part of the conditions in our conditional use permits that the project is decommissioned. It has to be fully out of the ground and returned to farmable land, similar to pre-installation, within 12 months of essentially like ceasing to operate.
Okay. So then you also had mentioned about the hurricane,
Yeah.
and you said that, like here, it'd go to local lines.
Yeah.
Well, in a hurricane, it doesn't matter whether it's solar or, whatever electric company, power lines are going to go down either way. So how can you sit there and say, yeah, you're going to have power, or that was the only place that had power in Florida in this area? I mean, I can't see that it wouldn't have taken out the lines that you're saying you're supplying electricity to. You know what I'm saying? You're saying that those lines stood up and that community had power.
Yeah, that's my understanding is that community
Right,
had power,
but
yeah.
So I just can't believe that a hurricane's not going to knock down the poles that is either transmitting local energy or solar energy. To me, that's
Okay.
throw that out the window. It doesn't mean gibberish.
Huh.
So I'm not an engineer, but we've been told by engineers that work for the utility companies, since this is a locally distributed project running on that three-phase, of course what you're saying is if a tree comes and knocks down the electric line. However, the utilities are encouraged to bring local generation up faster when they know that they have an asset that can produce. So the substation for this one is about 1.5 miles away. So We Energies would be encouraged to come to that line first for this community to bring that back online so that this power generation was not feeding into the sub for Elkhorn. And that's been told to us from the utility company. So yes, the utility lines can be impacted by a wind event, absolutely. But the utility company is going to be encouraged to do this repair of the line the
Okay, so then it feeds their property and the local around, you said, right?
Right. Yeah, it feeds
So
it
is
feeds
there-
the substation. It goes to it's power generated and distributed locally. Correct.
Locally throughout the whole Elkhorn or just in that area and Lafayette?
I think Elkhorn has a municipal electric utility. Is that
So-
correct?
Right?
So this is a We Energies. This would be in We Energies territory.
So is everybody's electric gonna go down then, cost of it, because of this, if solar's so cheap?
No, that's not at all what I'm suggesting.
Well, I'm just, you know.
That's a great point. I
asking.
wish.
Yeah.
But I don't foresee that happening. What will happen though is power prices will be stabilized because, like I said, it's a predictable source of electricity, not subject to fuel costs. We spend like $15 billion importing natural gas and coal and oil in Wisconsin. We don't produce any of that, but we have, kind of surprisingly, like a lot of sunlight. And we can take advantage of that in a very predictable way that prices don't suddenly skyrocket one year and then fall another year.
So also a lot of solar companies are going bankrupt. So 10 years down the line, let's say your company goes bankrupt, are you gonna go in there and clean all that out? I mean, who's left to do it if your company goes bankrupt? You know, it's, well, see ya.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope we don't go bankrupt, but this project will be owned by We Energies. And if they go bankrupt, there's lots of things that would be
So We
different.
Energies will own it and you,
The,
whatever your solar company is, won't?
the way Wisconsin state law works with regard to electricity is two things can happen when you build a project like this. Because we have what's called a regulated monopoly structure, where the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin serves as was designed to serve as a proxy for the market, and so they regulate the investor-owned utilities like We Energies and Excel and Alliant, WPS. So when there's a project like this that comes online, there's one of two things will happen. Either We Energies will sign an agreement called a power purchase agreement to purchase all the electricity from the project and then sell it to their customers, or they purchase the project outright and then they maintain it, according to the leases and the conditional use permits that are in place. So the ink isn't dry because we need to have permits first before moving through these processes, like having an agreement with We Energies, having the DNR stormwater permit. That all follows after a conditional use permit. But We Energies will be the owner of this project unless something substantial changes, where they would change their mind and change everything that they've told us, and instead do a power purchase agreement.
One last thing, she had mentioned that there's lead in those. Is there lead in that panel?
I can't guarantee atom for atom that there's 0 atoms of lead in this, but the components, she was referring to cadmium too. Cadmium telluride is really toxic. She's right, those heavy metals are in certain types of solar panels. 95+% of the solar industry is using this kind, monocrystalline or polycrystalline silicon panels. The kind that have cadmium telluride are called thin film. I've never even seen them, to be honest. These are installed on people's homes, millions of homes. 1 in 25 in the United States has solar panels on them. They're not harmful to live nearby. It's aluminum. Oh shoot! It's aluminum, tempered glass, silicon, silver. There might be a little bit of tin in there. But they're not like when they do break, if there's like a major hail event, it's tempered glass. It looks like a car windshield. It doesn't. There's nothing in there that's like circulating that would leak. They're basically inert. So not harmful. Like I will rub my face on it. It's not. We have we have coworkers who. Like my boss has solar on his home, like 12 feet from where he sleeps. water runs off of it into his rain barrel that he feeds his garden with, that he feeds his child, his vegetables with. I have a 4 and a 6-year-old at home. Like this isn't, these are not dangerous.
Now, when you get snow covered, they don't work, but you're telling me that these are self-defrosting?
No, but this is actually, I could show a video. There's a,
I could,
it would take me a minute to pull it up, but
Oh, okay.
basically we installed this project up in Rhinelander. This is called the Hodag Solar Project up in Rhinelander.
How
Or is
how
this
big
one
is
from,
that?
is this the Rhinelander one?
How big is that?
What is this? This is Endicott. I'm sorry, but I have a picture on my computer of our Hodag project. This one is just under a megawatt. But basically, the single axis tracker has, when it gets snow, when it has a snow load, it basically just like tilts and drops the snow off. And a video came out, a news story came out that I saw online the other day, where somebody was touring with the news anchor, touring the site and talking about it and describing what happens when there's snow, and just how it's just been working better than even expected, essentially, because they have instead of just being static and not moving and having snow pile up, depending on the pitch of your roof, if you put solar on your roof, you might have snow collect at the bottom. Like, they warm up a little bit. They're black. They warm up a little bit and snow melts off, but sometimes it'll collect at the bottom. But because these move, the snow, basically they just tilt so the snow comes off.
So is this one gonna be 6 times bigger than that picture you just said was 1?
Yeah, it'll be about 30 acres.
Now, exactly where is that on Cobb Road? How far north of Potter Road?
It's about a quarter mile to the south of Potter.
Quarter mile south of Potter.
Correct. So there's that church on the corner of Potter and Cobb, and it's to the southwest of that, or directly south, I guess.
get your monitors to work, but I can't. But if you could see the bigger screen or possibly in back, I'm going to try to illustrate this the best I can. So here's Potter Road here. This is the church here at Potter and Cobb. So if you go south of that.
It's south of the church?
South of the church, right in this area here. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. In between, there's basically boundaries where the ETZ borders zone C4 Walworth County land. It makes a little bit of a stripe, kind of, like this. But you can see the landmark on here is that path, that walking path. Or is that a walking path, Shane? I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, you can see that kind of zigzag there. That's kind of the middle of the project, basically.
That walking path is about the line of the old Eagle Railroad.
I don't know if it's a walking path. I may have misspoke,
Well,
but it looks
that,
like
that
that to
area,
me.
yeah. The Eagle Railroad used to go through there. Well, my question is on snow. If you get 6 inches of snow and it's never gets above 20 degrees, and the sun decides to disappear for 2 weeks, which it has many a time, do they stay snow covered, or do they have to come out and clean them off, or you don't get any power out of them for 2 weeks?
They tilt and dump the snow off.
They adjust themselves.
Right. If there's like an issue, sometimes they basically have like a slip gear on the tracker. So if there's enough pressure, say wind pressure, where one row gets out of sync with others, they basically just, when they go through a cycle, essentially a day, and it locks back into the slip gear. But similarly, if there's if there's a time where something's out of sync for more than a day, or any time that it's not producing as expected, because there's a weather station on site, it's like a small. It's basically like they're kind of hard to notice, but they just look like a small device. And they're transmitting information, and basically they're remote monitored 24/7. If there's an issue, alerts go out to the project owner and the O&M operations and maintenance contractor. So generally, issues are resolved within 2 weeks if there's something large that happens. Usually, an issue would be like if there's a major wind event. They generally, if there's high wind, they'll flatten out. They have like a wind stow mode, so the wind just like flows over them. They store flat. But if there's some kind of issue, there are alarms that are triggered, and folks come out to the site for a visit.
So you got a system on it that if one of the panels fails, you know that you can change it?
Yeah, you can.
Because I mean, articles I read, they say the life of these are 18 to 20 years.
They're warranted for 30.
Okay.
There are many solar projects that have been installed. I'm more familiar with the residential setting on what I'm about to say, because projects like this, like I said, haven't been around for that long, but it's the same fundamental product. There are projects that have been around for 30 years, 40 years. I hesitate to say that it's much longer than that. There's not a lot of examples that are longer than 40 years, but there are some. I mean, in the 70s, solar panels were going up, obviously at very high cost. But
Now, these articles also say that these panels, a large amount put off a lot of heat. There's a lot of increase in heat.
I've heard people think that as well. I have been out to sites in the hottest day of the year, and you want to be under the panels. They're shady. Like when there's sheep grazing on site, they go under the panels. If they were emitting lots of heat, the sheep would avoid them.
Well, the
You
heat
can
would
also
be-
put your hand on
The
top of
heat
them.
would be on top. I read one article, a guy claimed to get up to 800 degrees directly above the panels.
Yeah, I have seen that too. That's not how it works at all. They're designed to absorb sunlight and turn that sunlight into electricity. I understand the concern.
Yeah.
I have seen that. I think if we're talking about the same thing, he refers to something called black body radiation.
Yeah.
Also completely unrelated to solar. And if you search for that text, it appears in lots of different places, and it's just misinformation. I'm sorry. You can touch them. They do not get hot in a way that, like, if you think about it, like the solar panels are designed to absorb and convert sunlight into electricity. So any heat is lost production, right? That's energy dissipating that should be used for electricity rather than heat, right? Heat
Well, that's why
loss.
the same article says that panels are only 30% effective.
Yeah, that's high. They're usually around 22, 23%.
Right.
That's about it. We're kind of like, that's sort of like the cutting edge technology might be like 25% effective, but that's incredibly cost effective, and it's again cheapest kilowatt hour on the grid.
Right.
So you couldn't fry an egg on it then?
It would take a long time. You'd be slow cooking an egg. It wouldn't sizzle the way you would want it to.
Any other questions?
I just have a question. You said earlier that your intent is to sell this project to We Energies.
Yeah.
So when you talk about how you're going to maintain the site, it would technically be We Energies that's going to be maintaining the site, right?
So they have basically contracts with solar companies to do operations and maintenance, O&M for short. And so we have, it's our intention to be the operator, maintainer on the project. It's up to their discretion though, like that decision hasn't been made. But it stands to reason that since we're designing and building it and intimately familiar with it, that we would have a leg up in that negotiation.
I'm just saying in terms of, you talk about, it's your plan or your commitment to ensure that the soil is returned to be able to, farm on it in 30 years, but you're not going to own it.
Correct.
Right. Yeah,
So so one way you can ensure that that happens is to apply conditions that require it, essentially.
To Adam's question, well, what you're talking about is We Energies, in this case, being a sublessee. They're going to sublet, and they're going to own the leases. Am I right about that?
No.
Okay, explain how you're selling it to them, and isn't it they that have the obligation to honor the lease terms?
Yes, they would own the lease. They would be the
They'd be
lessor.
the lessee, right?
Yeah.
And the lessor would be
But
the
not-
landowner?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
So they're
Sorry, I misspoke.
So they are sublessee.
Not sub though.
Okay.
They would take ownership of the. They take ownership of the lease and the
They
project.
buy the whole lease from you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially,
And then-
there's the lease as it stands today is with One Energy Development, and then the project gets incorporated as an LLC. There's an assignment of that lease to the LLC. We Energies purchased the LLC.
And you're hopeful but not guaranteed that We Energies would hire your company to do the O&M.
Correct.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Are you involved in the one out by Darien?
Darien, I'm not familiar with.
Darien Township, there's a 200-acre solar farm going in over there.
Is that called Paris?
Huh?
Darien Solar is 4,200 acres.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
does Walworth County need an additional 30 when we have 4,200 in the county already?
I was just wondering if you were
Yeah.
part of it.
We're not part of that project. No.
No.
That's fine.
Yeah, the only thing I look at is if that's the southwest corner, that's awful close to the subdivision there, and also the golf course, which is all residential. And it's close to the city of Elkhorn, north of Highway 12, which is gonna, I think, someday be future development. It's about the only way west we've got left to go, so.
Yeah, we're actually right now, and just as a side note, we're right now getting ready to install sewer extension from the water plant there. It's gonna go connect actually across 12. So the intent being, and part of the reason the landowners gave the city easements, or I should say, we purchased those easements at a very, very reasonable rate, was because of, those landowners, farm owners out there intend on, selling that for development in the future. So that is, it's more than just a theoretical. It's definitely possible.
Allison, you have anything to add?
No, I think the applicant pretty much covered the scope of the project. If there's any specific questions, please let me know. I did tonight recommend approval on this project with the conditions listed. After hearing more about the project, I would recommend that if you do decide to move forward with approval tonight, that you might consider adding a condition that states that the leaseholder is responsible for this land and maintaining it, and that also they do decondition the property if they were to ever leave, disassemble and remove everything and restore it to proper farmland if the company were to ever fail or they finished their lease or anything of that nature. Other than that, I don't have anything to add. I know that Attorney Phillips and I did discuss there are some pretty stringent state statutes pertaining to solar projects. So if you have any questions on that, he can help us on the legal side.
I got one more question for you. Is there a noise? Like you go big high voltage, you can hear a hum noise. Does this give off any kind of noise?
Yeah, the inverters and the transformers do make a hum when it's, when
But do the panels?
No, the panels don't. But the inverters and the transformers do. We locate them centrally in the project. You wouldn't be able to hear it at the parcel boundary. You wouldn't you probably wouldn't be able to hear anything at the fence line. I have a question about one of the conditions. So the project site must be kept in a neat and orderly fashion and shall be mowed and landscaping maintained at all times and shall not become overgrown with weeds or vegetation. Like I don't mean to like, mince words or anything, but when we plant native prairie, who decides if, native prairie flowers are weeds? I think we don't want to mow your native, like it's mowed, the vegetation plan is very clear. Mowing happens basically beginning of the growing season, like April and end of the growing season, to keep things orderly. But like we do want to see this beneficial pollinator habitat thrive. We don't want it to look like a lawn. Could we adjust the condition to say project will be, or applicant or permittee will?
Do you want to maintain native prairie? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I think it should say like should follow the
So you could
vegetation
simply-
maintenance plan.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, and I apologize.
Sorry.
You could simply say that applicant will maintain native prairie over the project site.
Okay. Perfect.
And to add to something Allison said, I would ask that a condition be added that a copy of any lease that exists, including any amendments, be provided to the city of Elkhorn and kept on file and up to date. I'm sure that wouldn't be objectionable.
Can we redact sensitive information? Like,
I'm not interested in any of the, proprietary or sensitive documents but I can't imagine those would be in a lease, but.
financial terms.
Oh,
yeah.
financial, okay. Like, no, I don't think we care about that. I think
Okay.
we care about making sure that the lease terms address the issues that have been brought up tonight and maintaining and repair and then replacing the land back to its original state, or as you put it, better, after. That's the concerns that we have, and so a copy of the lease would do that for us. You could work with Allison on the redacting part.
Okay. And we submitted a decommissioning plan as well. So if that's,
That should be also something that would be, is that an attachment to the lease?
it's the decommissioning plan is for the conditional use application.
Oh, you did submit it already?
Yeah,
You
it's,
have that, is what
you
you're
have
saying.
it. Yes.
My apologies.
No, it's okay.
I should also make the board aware of Wisconsin Statute 66.0401, regulation relating to solar and wind energy systems. This is a statute that's been in place. Most recent iteration, I believe, was in 2009. Sub 1M indicates authority to restrict systems limited. No political subdivision, that would be us, may place any restriction, either directly or in effect, on the installation, use of a wind energy system that is more restrictive than the rules promulgated by the commission under, and it gives the statute number. No political subdivision may place any restriction, either directly or in effect, on the installation or use of a solar energy system as defined in, and it gives the statute, unless the restriction satisfies one of the following conditions, and this is A, B, and C. A, serves to preserve or protect the public health or safety. B, does not significantly increase the cost of the system or significantly decrease its efficiency. And C, allows for an alternative system of comparable cost and efficiency. I'm going to tell you right now, and I've looked at case law that's interpreted this statute, where a conditional use was denied, basically based on neighbor objections, and that was overturned by the courts.
If I may just add, our town attorney provided us with the same opinion.
Who is that, by the way?
That is Steve Cook.
Steve and I have talked about this, in fact.
Fair.
Anybody else wishing to be heard? Second call for anybody wishing to be heard on this matter. Yes, sir.
I would just like to know where the panels come from. Are they Chinese or are they US based?
Can I respond?
Go ahead and answer that, yeah.
The modules that we're using on the projects that are being constructed this year are made in Vietnam by a Japanese-owned company. It's called VSUN. We wish we could purchase and install American-made modules. the conditions right now are such that there's no availability of American-made modules. They're all either spoken for several years out, or they're not available. There have been announcements in the last year that there's manufacturing of American modules coming online, hopefully in the next couple of years soon. But we don't have access to American-made modules. I truly wish we did, and we hopefully will soon.
Okay, again, first call, any addition, anybody want to be heard? Second call, anybody want to be heard on this matter? Third call, anybody wishing to be heard? If not, hearing is closed. Now, discussion is up to the ETZ board. And if anybody wants to make a motion either for or against, that would be accepted.
Have you guys had any other meetings besides this one talking about this project?
We did have both a public hearing, a plan commission meeting, and it also went to our town board for a meeting. The public hearing happened in September. I believe it was before the plan commission in October for a recommendation, and then it was voted on by our board in November.
And it was approved, a recommended approval on their end.
It was recommended to be, there was a recommendation for approval from both the plan commission to the town board and from the town board to the ETZ.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the conditional use permit with staff recommendations
As amended tonight.
as amended tonight.
There we go. Okay.
There's a second to the motion?
I'll second.
I would ask for a roll call vote.
Boardman,
No.
Stocko,
No.
Watke,
Yes.
Smaji,
Yes.
Stefan,
Yes.
Motion is carried. Motion
Motion to
for,
close or to adjourn.
second to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.